Throughout my life, I have harnessed the power of love as a source of strength.
That gave us Trump in the first place.
They say behind every great man stands a great woman. In Donald Trump's case, she was standing about 6 feet away, swatting his hand like it carried the plague. The moment went viral faster than a cat video. Melania Trump, First Lady and perpetual enigma, seemingly rejecting her husband's attempt to hold her hand as they descended from Air Force One. The internet erupted. Cable news exploded. Body language experts were summoned from whatever cave they normally hibernate in to analyze every pixel of the footage. Was it a slap or just a hand pull away? Became the question that dominated news cycles, pushing aside trivial matters like international diplomacy and economic policy. It wasn't a slap, insisted MAGA loyalists on Fox News. She was just adjusting her hair. Leave it to Fox News not to recognize what rejection from a woman looks like. Trevor Noah quipped on The Daily Show, sending his audience into hysterics. Long before Donald Trump was sworn in as the 45th president of the United States, his marriage to Melania had been fodder for tabloids and gossip columns. The 24-year age gap, the lingerie model turned first lady, the prenuptial agreement rumored to be thicker than the federal budget. But once the couple moved into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, what had been a sideshow became the main event. Every glance, every gesture, every moment of physical contact, or conspicuous lack thereof, was dissected with the intensity usually reserved for Zapruder film analysis. Remember the inauguration? When Melania's smile collapsed into a grimace the moment Donald turned away? That clip played on loop for weeks. Or the State of the Union address, when she arrived separately in an all-white pantsuit that fashion critics and political analysts alike interpreted as a statement of independence. Or perhaps resistance. "I'm very strong, very confident, and I can handle everything," Melania told ABC News in a rare interview. "But what I will not allow is people saying lies." Which lies exactly? She never specified. But the rumor mill had plenty to offer. Stories of separate bedrooms in the White House, tales of a marriage that existed only on paper, whispers about the real reason she delayed moving to Washington for months after the inauguration. Donald Trump just unleashed a Twitter tantrum so wild even Elon Musk's satellites are confused, joked late-night host Jimmy Kimmel after one particularly explosive social media meltdown from the then-president. The catalyst? Trevor Noah had spent nearly 10 minutes of his show dissecting the Trump marriage, comparing their public interactions to watching a hostage video where the hostage keeps trying to blink out "help me" in Morse code. Trump, never one to let a perceived slight go unchallenged, fired back with an all-caps rant that called Noah a third-rate comedian who nobody watches, and proclaimed his marriage the greatest and most loving ever in the White House, maybe ever. The social media outburst only amplified the story, transforming what might have been a one-night comedy bit into a week-long news cycle. Suddenly, everyone was an expert on the Trump marriage. "He treats that orb in Saudi Arabia better than he treats his wife," Noah had joked, referencing the infamous photo of Trump placing his hands on a glowing sphere during a Middle Eastern diplomatic visit. "I remember when you used to touch me like the orb, Donald." Noah mock-whined in what he imagined was Melania's voice. The crowd had roared, Twitter had exploded, and somewhere in Mar-a-Lago, a presidential blood pressure cuff had probably burst. If there's one thing more dangerous than swatting away your husband's hand when you're the First Lady, it's publicly disagreeing with him. Yet that's exactly what Melania appeared to do when Donald attacked basketball superstar LeBron James on Twitter. After James opened a school for underprivileged children in his hometown of Akron, Ohio, and gave an interview criticizing the president's divisive rhetoric, Trump fired back, questioning James' intelligence. Just hours later, Melania's spokesperson released a statement praising James' charitable work and expressing interest in visiting the school. "It seems the First Lady is Team LeBron," CNN announced gleefully. The White House scrambled to do damage control, insisting Melania's statement had nothing to do with the president and everything to do with how good LeBron's school is. "That's a woman scorned in a relationship," Trevor Noah observed. "If you've ever grown up in a house where two adults are fighting, it's pretty much what it is. You'll be at dinner and someone will go, 'No, no, don't put the gravy on top, put it on the side. And then the other person will say, yeah, he likes things on the side, Noah said, his voice dripping with passive-aggressive venom on those last words. The audience erupted in knowing laughter, the kind that says, we've all been there. When Melania disappeared from public view for nearly a month in 2018, conspiracy theories flourished. Had she fled the White House? Was she secretly cooperating with the Mueller investigation? Had she been replaced by a body double? Yes, that was a real theory, complete with side-by-side photo evidence of fake Melania. The official explanation, that she was recovering from a kidney procedure, did little to quell speculation, especially when Donald referred to his wife as being right there during a press conference where she was visibly absent. When she finally reappeared, looking perfectly healthy and composed, the mystery only deepened. Why the long absence? Why the secrecy? Why did the president seem so unclear about his wife's whereabouts? No answers came. Only more fodder for late-night comedians and Twitter sleuths. Who gives a fuck about Christmas stuff and decorations? Melania was recorded saying in a leaked conversation with former aide Stephanie Winston Wolkoff. But I need to do it, right? The recording, released in October 2020, confirmed what many had long suspected, that Melania's enthusiasm for her First Lady duties might be somewhat less than genuine. Her Christmas decorations had already raised eyebrows, particularly the 2018 display featuring blood-red trees that prompted comparisons to The Shining and The Handmaid's Tale. Melania's Christmas decorations look like they're straight out of a horror movie, one Twitter user wrote, which, to be fair, is exactly what living with Donald Trump must feel like. Donald rushed to his wife's defense, insisting she loves Christmas and had been recorded illegally by a disgruntled former employee, but the damage was done. The image of Melania as a reluctant participant in her own life was cemented in the public imagination. If Melania's public appearances were rare, her noticeable reactions during those appearances became legendary. No First Lady in history has communicated so much while saying so little. There was the infamous side eye at Ivanka during the 2016 Republican National Convention, a fleeting moment when her composed facade cracked to reveal what many interpreted as pure disdain. The smile to frown transformation as Donald turned away after the inauguration. The caught-on-camera moment when she appeared to refuse to hold his hand on the White House lawn. She just keeps it moving, observed Trevor Noah. She'll release a statement that seems to contradict him, and when people ask if she's going against the president, she'll release another statement saying, no, this has nothing to do with the president. That's all you're going to get. Each of these moments became instant memes, endlessly recycled across social media platforms as evidence of, well, what exactly? A loveless marriage? A woman trapped in a gilded cage? Or simply a private person uncomfortable with public displays of affection? The truth remained elusive, but that didn't stop America from speculating. If there was one moment that encapsulated the public's fascination with Melania's cryptic messaging, it was the jacket incident. In June 2018, while boarding a plane to visit immigrant children separated from their parents at the US-Mexico border, Melania wore a $39 Zara jacket emblazoned with the phrase, "I really don't care, do you?" on the back. The backlash was swift and fierce. How could the First Lady wear such a callous message while visiting children in crisis? What was she thinking? Donald insisted it was a message aimed at the fake news media, not the children. Melania's spokesperson initially claimed it was just a jacket with no hidden message, then later contradicted this, agreeing with the president's interpretation. Months later, Melania herself offered yet another explanation, telling ABC News, "It was for the people and for the left-wing media who are criticizing me, and I want to show them that I don't care." Whatever the intended message, the jacket became symbolic of the Trump era's communication style, provocative, confusing, and guaranteed to keep people talking. When the Trumps left Washington following Donald's election defeat, speculation about the state of their marriage reached fever pitch. Would Melania file for divorce now that they were private citizens again? Would she retreat to New York while he remained in Florida? Instead, they settled into a routine at Mar-a-Lago that revealed little about their private relationship. Melania was rarely seen at public events with Donald, appearing occasionally at dinners, but often keeping to herself. When she did appear, the same old pattern emerged, moments of apparent tension captured by eagle-eyed observers and disseminated across the internet. At this point, I think Melania has perfected the art of appearing just often enough to prove she hasn't left him, but rarely enough to fuel constant speculation, quipped one political commentator. It's quite brilliant, actually. For his part, Donald continued to insist they had a great relationship whenever asked, though he noticeably stopped using his once favorite descriptor, "my beautiful wife," in speeches and interviews. Throughout it all, late-night comedians struck comedy gold with the Trump marriage. Trevor Noah in particular made it a recurring theme, his impersonation of Melania's accent and his imagined dialogue between the couple becoming audience favorites. "Trump is so African presidential," Noah observed during one monologue. "He's already at the level of Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe. My people have great praise for me. People love me. Everybody loves me," Noah mimicked, seamlessly transitioning from Trump to dictator comparisons. The only wall Trump ever built was between him and reality. The audience reaction was electric. People weren't just laughing, they were experiencing that special kind of catharsis that comes from seeing something you've thought privately expressed publicly with perfect precision. Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed king of insults, just got verbally folded like a cheap lawn chair, one viewer tweeted after a particularly brutal Noah takedown. And Trump's reactions only made it funnier. His social media tantrums, calling comedians not funny or failing, only confirmed what everyone suspected. The jokes were landing exactly where they were aimed. Some political analysts traced Trump's presidential ambitions directly back to the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where then-President Barack Obama mercilessly roasted him while Trump sat stone-faced in the audience. Imagine getting so publicly humiliated that you decide, you know what, I'm going to run an entire country just for revenge, Trevor Noah mused years later. That's like losing a game of Monopoly and deciding to buy real estate just to prove a point. Whether this origin story is accurate or merely convenient narrative, Trump's sensitivity to mockery became legendary during his presidency. And nowhere was this more evident than in his reactions to jokes about his marriage. So what is the truth about the Trump marriage? Is it, as Donald insists, a loving partnership between equals? Or is it, as critics suggest, a transactional arrangement between a wealthy man and a former model with an ironclad prenup? The one person who could definitively answer this question has chosen to remain largely silent. In her rare public statements, Melania has offered only the blandest of platitudes about her relationship, speaking instead about her son, her anti-bullying campaign, the irony of which was lost on no one, and her desire for privacy. "I know people like to speculate and media like to speculate about our marriage," she told ABC News in 2018. "It is not always pleasant, of course, but I know what is right and what is wrong and what is true or not true." What's true, apparently, is that Melania Trump remains an enigma, a sphinx-like figure whose true feelings can only be guessed at through fleeting facial expressions and the occasional unguarded moment. Perhaps that's by design. In a world where her husband dominates every news cycle with bombast and bluster, Melania's reserve creates its own kind of power. The power of mystery, of leaving people guessing, of never showing your full hand. Or perhaps, as Trevor Noah suggests, it's simply the coping mechanism of a woman who finds herself in a position she never wanted and can't easily escape. Sometimes I wonder if Melania is actually the smartest Trump, Noah mused during one monologue. She barely speaks in public, so no one can criticize what she says. She rarely appears with Donald, so she's not associated with his policies. And she's perfected that look, you know, the one that says, "I'm thinking thoughts you can't possibly imagine." The audience laughed, as they always did at Noah's Trump material, but beneath the laughter lay an uncomfortable question. What if the joke isn't funny at all from Melania's perspective? Conway did something few Trump critics have managed, observes a political media analyst. He got under Trump's skin without losing his own composure. He provoked a meltdown while remaining perfectly calm himself. In the game of political chess, that's checkmate. What makes Conway's critique particularly damaging is its timing. As Trump navigates multiple legal challenges and attempts another presidential run, Conway's framing of him as unstable, desperate, and facing inevitable legal consequences undermines the strongman image that forms the core of Trump's political appeal. Conway didn't just attack Trump, explains a political psychologist, attacked the foundational myth Trump has built around himself, the idea that he's a strategic genius playing 4D chess while everyone else plays checkers. Conway portrayed him instead as an impulsive, reactive figure driven by pathological needs rather than strategic thinking. For his part, Conway shows no signs of remorse for his public evisceration of the man his wife once served so loyally. When asked if his criticism might hurt Trump's electoral chances, Conway responded with characteristic bluntness. I believe this is what ultimately was always going to happen, the final implosion of Donald Trump. As this saga continues to unfold, one thing is certain. George Conway has cemented his place in political history as the insider critic who knew exactly where to place the knife and wasn't afraid to twist it. It's like watching a perfect political assassination, marvels a veteran Washington reporter. Conway isn't just criticizing Trump, he's systematically dismantling the psychological architecture that makes Trump who he is. For a man who built his empire on loyalty and whose worst fear is betrayal, there could be no critic more devastating than the husband of one of his most trusted advisors. George Conway doesn't just attack Trump's politics, he exposes the man behind the myth, the insecurities behind the bluster, and the desperation behind the bravado. And in Washington's never-ending Game of Thrones, that's the most lethal blow of all.